What is authentication? Hi everyone, and welcome to this video on restapi security with Spring Boot 3. Today, we're diving into the essential concept of authentication. Authentication is all about verifying who a user is. It's the process of confirming their identity. Think of it like logging into a website with your username and password. The system checks if those credentials are valid. Without authentication, anyone could access your API, potentially leading to data breaches or unauthorized actions. So, it's absolutely crucial for any secure API. In this video, we'll use springsecurity to implement basic authentication and protect our API endpoints. Basic authentication is one of the simplest authentication methods. The client sends the username and password in the authorization header of the HTTP request, encoded in base64. While simple, basic authentication is generally suitable only for development or internal APIs due to security concerns. Base6 for encoding is easily reversible. For production, JWT or OAuth 2.0 are usually preferred, which we'll cover in later videos. Let's jump into the code and see how to implement it with Spring Security.
So let's start basic authentication. We have to add two dependencies, Spring Security, Spring Web, and we have to add artifact name, group ID. This by default are, and I change this one, and then you have to generate this. So I already generated it and added it to IDE. So we have a security and web. This one is by default Spring Boot starter. So first of all, we have to create the class security config, and we have to give the configuration annotation. After that, we have to add to bean method, bean public in memory user detail service method name, and user details equal to user, then user dot with default encoder. So right now I'm using by default, but in a production you have to use any other password encoder. And then username, that is user, we are using static, but in a production you have to use dynamic, you have to use database. Then password we have to add, then roles. So particular user have a role, user. Then dot build, we have to return in memory user detail manager with parameter user. Okay, then another way for the filtration purpose or security purpose, we can say. So public security filter chain with parameter http security http throws exception http dot authorize http request auth dot any request dot authenticated. So these are the for the security purpose. Then dot http basic with default. So it's a enable http basic authentication. Then return http dot build. Okay, and we have to create the control class so that we can check how it's working. So we have a control class hello controller. Okay, and give the annotation at the rate rest controller get mapping ap slash api slash hello public string hello, and the return we are returning string hello secure world. Okay, then we have to run this application. Okay, it's running on a 880 port, and we have to basic auth and username and password. Send the request. It's secured. But when we change these credentials, it's unauthorized.